I was in the middle of a riot in a classroom. A furious mob was raging about, throwing chairs and fighting with each other. And the Goliath among them, a huge, repulsive barbarian with a pockmarked face, had me locked in an iron grip. I was desperately trying to get away. And here I was, face to face, with as real an ogre as you'd ever want to meet. But at this point, I realized I was dreaming. Remembering what I'd previously learned from handling similar situations, I stopped struggling, because I knew that the conflict was with myself. I assumed that the ogre was a dream personification of something I wanted to deny in myself, or perhaps it represented someone or some quality that I disliked in another. Experience had shown me that in the dream world, at least, the best way to bring hate and conflict to an end was to love my enemies as myself. When I realized I was dreaming, I remembered all this in a flash. So, I tried to feel loving as I faced my ogre. At first, I failed completely, feeling only revulsion and disgust. My gut reaction said he was simply too ugly and barbarous to love. But I tried to ignore the image and seek love within my own heart. Finding it, I looked at my ogre in the eyes, trusting my intuition to supply the right things to say. Beautiful words of acceptance flowed out of me, and as they did, he melted into me. As for the riot, it had vanished without a trace. The dream faded, and I awoke, feeling wonderfully calm. Hello, this is Dr. Stephen LaBerge. You just heard an example of what we call lucid dreaming while knowing that you're dreaming. I've been exploring lucid dreaming both personally and scientifically for 10 years. And I'd like to take this opportunity to share with you some of what I've learned. First of all, let me clearly explain what a lucid dream is. In our ordinary dreams, we don't usually recognize that they are dreams until after we wake up. But sometimes we do realize that we're dreaming while we're still dreaming. What makes lucid dreams so special is that we have much more power to control what happens than in ordinary dreams. Not only are lucid dreams exciting experiences that can let you wake up feeling on top of the world, they can also be useful for a variety of practical purposes. For example, you can use lucid dreams to get to know yourself better, to overcome nightmares, to enhance your creativity, and to have extraordinary adventures. Lucid dreaming may make it possible for you to experience anything you choose. For example, you might want to talk to Albert Einstein, or make love to a movie star, or see God. And best of all, lucid dreaming is a skill that can be learned, and I'll teach you how to do it on this tape. But first, let me tell you how I got interested in lucid dreaming and what I've done with it. When I was 5 years old, I used to go to Saturday matinees where I saw serials that would continue from one week to the next. I had the great idea, why couldn't I do that in my dreams? Well, I could, and did. I used to have these undersea pirate adventure dreams night after night. And one time I remember being underwater for a long time and thinking, I can't hold my breath this long. But then I realized, hey, in these dreams I don't have to worry about that. That was the earliest time I remember knowing that I was dreaming while in a dream. It wasn't until many years later, in my early 20s, when I developed an interest in psychology that I began to be interested in dreams. But then I read something about lucid dreaming, and I noticed that I had more lucid dreams. I thought that if this could happen accidentally, perhaps it could also happen deliberately. And perhaps I could learn to have lucid dreams at will. So I started paying attention to my dreams and writing them down, and developed some techniques that allowed me to have lucid dreams when I wanted to. In fact, I made lucid dreaming the topic of my PhD dissertation at Stanford University, where I've done research for the past 10 years. When I started my scientific research on lucid dreaming, the experts generally thought it was impossible. But I had dreamt this impossible dream, so I knew that it really happened. But how could I prove it? Well, it occurred to me that if I could communicate from the dream world to the outside world while the lucid dream was happening, this would be proof. My only problem was how to do it. But before I tell you how I did it, I need to give you some background on sleep and dreaming. There are two kinds of sleep, a quiet phase and an active phase, which can be distinguished by brain waves, eye movements, and muscle tone. The quiet phase fits the common-sense view of sleep as a state of restful inactivity. Your brain is running on idle and your eyes are motionless. During the active phase, commonly called rapid eye movement or REM sleep, your eyes move quickly about as they would if you were awake. The active periods of REM, which normally occur every 60 to 90 minutes, alternate with quiet phases of non-REM. During these REM periods, everyone dreams every night, whether they remember it or not. During the 4 or 5 periods of REM sleep you'll enter tonight, your dreaming brain will be incredibly active. In fact, it will be more active than it is right now, unless you happen to be listening to this tape while jogging. While all this activity is happening in your brain, your body remains almost at rest because it's temporarily paralyzed during REM sleep to prevent you from acting out your dreams. The sleep paralysis of REM sleep sometimes doesn't always turn off immediately upon awakening, and this is why you may have experienced waking up and not being able to move for a minute. By the way, sleepwalking doesn't happen during REM sleep, but during quiet sleep, oddly enough. Now, back to how I developed a method for communicating from the dream world. When I was first beginning my research 10 years ago, it seemed likely that lucid dreaming would happen during REM sleep, because that's when most dreaming occurs. But, as I've just said, most of the dreamer's body is paralyzed during REM, except the eyes, and there lay the answer. I knew that earlier studies had shown that the direction of dreamers' physical eye movements during REM was sometimes exactly the same as the direction that they reported looking in their dreams after awakening. In one remarkable example, a dreamer was awakened from REM sleep after making a series of about 24 regular left-right eye movements. He reported that he was dreaming about a ping-pong game. Just before awakening, he'd been following a long volley with his dream gaze. I also knew from my own experience that I could look in any direction I wanted to while in a lucid dream. So it occurred to me that I ought to be able to signal while I was having a lucid dream by moving my eyes in a prearranged, recognizable pattern. To test this idea, I spent the night in the Stanford Sleep Lab. I wore electrodes to measure my brain waves, eye movements, and muscle tone, which were recorded on a polygraph while I slept. During the night, I had a lucid dream in which I moved my eyes left, right, left, right. The next morning, when we looked at the polygraph record, we found the eye movement signals right in the middle of a REM period. Dozens of other lucid dreamers have also successfully signaled from lucid dreams almost exclusively during REM sleep. So I had proved that lucid dreaming really happened during sleep. But a more useful result developed from this new method of communication from the dream world. The fact that lucid dreamers could remember to perform previously agreed upon actions in their dreams, and that they could signal to the waking world, made possible an entirely new approach to dream research. In a series of studies at Stanford, we've been using this technique to map out mind-body relationships during dreaming. To give you an idea how this works, one question we asked was, how long do dreams take? This question has intrigued humanity for many centuries. A traditional answer was that dreams take very little or no time at all. There's, for example, the story of Muhammad's night journey. The prophet is said to have overturned a pitcher of water just before falling asleep and leaving by a flying horse on a tour of the 7 heavens, in the course of which he met and conversed with the 7 prophets, numerous angels, and God himself. Having taken in all the sights of the afterworld, the prophet woke to find the water hadn't yet run out of the pitcher he overturned before his dream journey. This tale aside, we've found good evidence suggesting that dreams usually take as much time as it would to actually do whatever's being dreamt. Lucid dreamers make it easy to obtain a direct measure of how long dreams seem to last. All you need to do is to ask the lucid dreamer to signal when he or she becomes lucid, and then to estimate an interval of, say, 10 seconds by counting in the dream, 1001, 1002, and so on up to 1010. Then the lucid dreamer signals again to mark the end of the time estimation interval, which can then be directly measured on the polygraph readout. I've done this 4 times myself. The average length of those estimated 10-second intervals was 13 seconds, which was identical to my average estimation of a 10-second interval while awake. Similar tasks carried out by other lucid dreamers have given the same results. The conclusion follows that in lucid dreams, estimated dream time is very nearly equal to clock time. That is, it takes just as long to dream you're doing something as it does to actually do it. You may well object and say, "But I've had dreams in which I spent what seemed like years or lifetimes." So have many, but I believe it happens in dreams the same way that the illusion of the passage of much time is accomplished in the movies or theater. If we see someone turning off the light at midnight, and a few moments later see him turning off an alarm shortly after dawn, we'll accept that a night has passed, even though we know it was only a few seconds. I think we use the same convention in dreams to produce the experience of extended passages of time. We've done a number of similar experiments in which we've had lucid dreamers perform specific actions in their dreams, such as sending messages in Morse code, singing, counting, sexual activity, which we'll discuss later in this tape, breath holding and rapid breathing, and so on. These experiments showed that the events you experience while asleep and dreaming produce effects on your brain, and to somewhat lesser extent your body, remarkably similar to those that would be produced if you were to actually experience the corresponding events while awake. Thus, to our brains, dreaming of doing something is equivalent to actually doing it. But why do we dream anyway? One answer is because we're mammals. Dreaming and REM sleep are biological inventions more than 100 million years old. We dream for the same reason we have brains, which is to help us get what we need and avoid danger. Our brains create models of the world, allowing us to know what to expect and how to act. This same world modeling process takes place whether we're asleep or awake. When we're asleep, there's little sensory input. So we build a world based on what's inside our heads already. That is, our expectations, memories, fears, desires, and so on. We build a world based on the sort of things we expect to find, and that's why dreams are informative, because they tell us about the worlds we build. So in our dreams, we're trying to figure out how to get what we want and avoid what we don't want. Sometimes we succeed and sometimes we fail, as in the case of nightmares, in which we find ourselves in situations that we don't know how to cope with flexibly enough. But if you become lucid in a nightmare, you can reflect, "What am I doing wrong here? I'm running away from something. This is a dream, so these are characters I've made up, and there's no use in trying to run away from myself. I should turn around and find out what I'm afraid of." So being lucid greatly enhances your flexibility, making it easier to master whatever challenges your dream may present. The ability to respond flexibly to problems is valuable not only in the dream world, but also in the waking world. Indeed, sometimes responding creatively may be the only course of action available. You can't always get other people to act the way you want. However, you have at every moment the power to change your attitudes and how you define the situation you're in. If you think external events really determine your outlook on life, please consider the following. Two men looked out through prison bars. One saw mud, the other stars. We've talked about some of what I've done with dream control. Now let's talk about what you might want to do with it. There are two ways to master situations in your lucid dreams. One way involves magical manipulation of the dream, controlling them or it, while the other way involves self-control. As it happens, the first kind of control doesn't always work, which may actually be a blessing in disguise. If we learn to solve our problems in our lucid dreams by magically changing things we didn't like, we might mistakenly hope to do the same thing in our waking lives. Suppose, for instance, in my ogre dream, I had chosen to turn my adversary into a toad and get rid of him that way. How would that help me if at another time I were to find myself in conflict with a boss or some other authority figure whom I might well see as an ogre in spite of my being awake? Turning him into a toad would hardly be practical. However, a change of attitude might resolve the situation. The other type of control open to lucid dreamers is self-control. What I mean by self-control is really control over habitual reactions. For example, if you're afraid and run away, even though you know you should face your fear, you aren't controlling your behavior, your fear is. Although the events that appear to take place in dreams are illusory, our feelings in response to dream events are real. So when we're fearful in a dream and realize that it's a dream, Even though we know that what's happening isn't real, our fear doesn't vanish automatically. We still have to deal with it, and this is why lucid dreams are such good practice for our waking lives. We're free to control our responses to the dream, and whatever we learn in doing so will readily apply to our waking lives as well. In my ogre dream, I gained a degree of self-mastery and confidence that has served me as well in the waking world as in the dream. As a result of such lucid dream encounters, I now feel confident that I could handle just about any situation that I find myself in. So if you'd like to enhance your own sense of self-confidence, my advice is that you'd be wise to control yourself, not your dreams. One of the most important areas to use this control is dealing with nightmares. I see the anxiety we experience in nightmares as a sign of our failure to function effectively in our dreams. This happens when you encounter a fear-provoking situation against which your habitual patterns of behavior are ineffective. If you experience a recurring anxiety dream, what you obviously need is a new approach to coping with the situation represented by the dream. If you're a relatively normal person who has nightmares only occasionally, and you're willing to take responsibility for your experience, and in particular for your dreams, then lucid dreaming can be an exceedingly powerful tool for coping with anxiety dreams. This was illustrated by my ogre dream and will be explained in more detail on Side 2. In addition to providing a way of handling nightmares, another possible benefit of lucid dreaming is healing. Dreams are in essence very realistic mental images, and there's some evidence that the deliberate use of mental imagery can aid healing. One of the most intriguing applications of mental imagery to therapy is Dr. Carl Simonton's work with cancer patients. Dr. Simonton and his colleagues report that patients supplementing standard treatments for advanced cancer with healing imagery survived on the average twice as long as expected by national averages. While caution is necessary in interpreting these results, they do suggest an exciting possibility. Given the connection between mind and body that we've observed in the experiments I've described, it seems justifiable to hope that the use of healing imagery in lucid dreams might be even more effective. Although the idea that lucid dreams could affect our physical health is speculative, there seems little doubt that they can contribute positively to our mental health and happiness. As an example, here's a young woman's first lucid dream. She had read an article on lucid dreaming, and later that night dreamt that she seemed to be responsible for a baby, which was very messy and sitting on a pot. She was looking for a bathroom in order to clean up the baby without being noticed. As she picked up the baby, she felt distinctly that it should be older and better trained. And when she looked more closely at the child's face, she found it full of wisdom, and suddenly she knew she was dreaming. Excitedly, she tried to remember the advice in the article, but the only thing that came to mind was a notion of her own, ultimate experience. She felt herself taken over by a blissful sensation of blending and melting with colors and light that continued to unfold, opening into a total orgasm. Afterwards, she gently floated into waking consciousness and was left with a feeling of bubbling joy that persisted for a week or more. This carryover of positive feelings into the waking state is an important feature of lucid dreaming. Some people fear that lucid dreaming will leave them tired the next day, but our bodies are just as rested after lucid dreams as they are after ordinary dreaming. How you feel after waking from a lucid dream depends mainly on what you did in it. Dreams, remembered or not, often color our mood upon awakening, sometimes even for a good part of the day. Just as the negative after effect of bad dreams can cause you to feel as if you got up on the wrong side of the bed, the positive feelings of a good dream can give you an emotional uplift, helping you to start the day with confidence and vigor. This is all the more true of inspirational lucid dreams. As the result of such experiences, you may be motivated to try out new behaviors, leading to psychological growth and improvements in your waking life. Since you're free to test new behaviors in your lucid dreams without fear of harming yourself or others, the lucid dream state provides a uniquely secure environment for personal experimentation. Your lucid dreams can become a laboratory or a playground for developing creative new ways of living. Speaking of creativity, dreams have been a source of new ideas and creative thought throughout history in a diversity of areas ranging from art and literature to science and engineering and even sports. To cite a few examples of creative dreaming, Poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge composed his famous poem, Kubla Khan in a Dream. Chemist Friedrich Kekulé discovered the structure of the benzene molecule while napping, thereby setting the stage for modern chemistry. Inventor Elias Howe dreamed the key to making the first sewing machine, and master golfer Jack Nicklaus had a dream insight that improved his game by 10 strokes overnight. In the past, we've had little control over the occurrence of creative dreams. But by means of lucid dreaming, it may be possible to intentionally access the creativity of the dream state. This is an intriguing possibility, and we'll discuss it further on Side 2. Speaking of intriguing, lucid dreams have the potential to fulfill sexual fantasies, and could well be a boon to the lovelorn and sexually frustrated. Does this sound interesting? Well, let me be more specific. Dream sex plays a prominent role in many people's lucid dreams. Consider psychologist Patricia Garfield, an experienced lucid dreamer and dream researcher. She reports that 2/3 of her lucid dreams have sexual content, and about a half of these lucid dreams culminate in orgasms that are apparently as good or even better than the real thing. In her book, Pathway to Ecstasy, Dr. Garfield describes her lucid dream orgasms as being of profound intensity. She finds herself bursting into soul and body-shaking explosions with a totality of self that's only sometimes felt in the waking state. These experiences sound so incredibly impressive that skeptics might find them difficult to believe. But our mind-body studies at Stanford have scientifically verified the reality of lucid dream sex. Our results showed that sexual activity and the experience of orgasm in lucid dreams is associated with physiological changes such as rapid breathing and genital arousal that are nearly identical to the bodily responses that occur during real sexual activity. This conclusion supports the idea that the brain, and in many instances the body, experiences dreamed events as if they were real. For those craving more sexual activity in their lives, lucid dreaming may provide a satisfying solution. In lucid dreams, you can have sexual encounters as often as you like, with whomever you like, in the privacy and safety of your own dream world. Lucid dream sex could also help with problems of shyness and self-confidence. If you happen to feel self-conscious around a certain person whom you desire, why not play out your fantasies, or rehearse your actions in your dreams? Perhaps you can find in your dream self the assertiveness you need to approach the person you're attracted to. The implications are sensational. All you have to do is master the art of becoming lucid in your dreams. So far, we've talked about concrete facts and practical benefits. But before we continue on Side 2 with methods, I'd like to briefly mention something about the higher or spiritual implications of lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming can be used for the exploration of what may lie beyond what we think we are. Here's an example of how it works. Late one morning several years ago, I found myself driving in my sports car down the dream road, perfectly aware that I was dreaming. I was delighted by the vibrantly beautiful scenery my lucid dream was presenting me with. After driving a short distance further, I saw a very attractive hitchhiker on the side of the road just ahead. I hardly need to say that I felt strongly inclined to stop and pick her up. But I said to myself, I've had that dream before. How about something new? So I passed her by, resolving instead to seek the highest. As soon as I had opened myself to guidance, my car took off into the air, flying rapidly upwards until it fell behind like the first stage of a rocket, and I continued to fly higher into the clouds. Then I passed a cross on a steeple top, a Star of David, and other religious symbols. As I rose still higher, beyond the clouds, I entered a space that seemed a limitless mystical realm, a vast emptiness that was yet full of love, an unbounded space that felt somehow like home. My mood had lifted as high as I'd flown, and I began to sing with ecstatic inspiration. The quality of my voice was truly amazing. It spanned the entire range from deepest bass to highest soprano. I felt as if I were embracing the entire cosmos in the resonance of my voice. This dream gave me a vastly expanded sense of identity. I felt as if I had another form of being to which my ordinary sense of self stood in relation as a drop of water to the sea. If you have a taste for the infinite, you can seek the highest in your lucid dreams, as I did in mine. It's important to decide in advance what you want to do with your lucid dream. You might want to ask yourself, if this were the last experience I was ever going to have, what would I like it to be? This certainly clears away the trivial and leaves what's really important to you. I'd like to leave you with one of the most significant implications of lucid dreaming. Lucid dreams can show you, in the most direct manner possible, precisely what it would be like to discover that you're not yet fully awake. Not yet fully awake? What does that mean? Well, there's a traditional teaching that holds that most of humanity is asleep. So when Idris Shah, a contemporary Sufi teacher, was asked, "What is a fundamental mistake of man's?" he replied, "To think he is alive when he has merely fallen asleep in life's waiting room." It's ordinarily very difficult to conceive of how you might not yet be fully awake. But think about this analogy. As ordinary dreaming is to lucid dreaming, so the ordinary waking state is to something we could call the lucid waking state. Take a moment before turning over the tape and ask yourself, how do you know that you're fully awake right now?
Please fast forward to the end and turn the tape over for proper cueing of side 2.